good evening, and a very warm welcome to everyone joining us from Talking Films Online, or TFO as we call it. TFO was founded in June 2020 during lockdown by Professor Nicola and Dr. Geeta Viswanath almost on a whim. What started as a spontaneous idea has now become a vibrant community of film scholars, researchers, students, teachers, and passionate lovers of cinema. Every Saturday at 9 p.m. on Zoom, we come together to discuss films from across the world. The format is pretty simple yet powerful. Someone from our group selects a film. We all watch it in our own time and then meet to discuss it. Over the years, we have also been joined by filmmakers, editors, and cinematographers like Aparna Sen, Amol Palekar, Adul Gopalakrishnan, etc. We have explored cinema through various lenses, hosting themed festivals on East European, Iranian, and women's cinema, among others. Every June to mark our anniversary, we host a smartphone short filmmaking contest for students and organize a lecture series in university departments. And just this past September, we held our first offline event, an international seminar on Indian cinema in digital era in collaboration with FCT Baroda. We are truly honored today to host an engaging discussion with one of the most acclaimed voices in South Asian cinema, Mr. Prasanna Vithanage. Born in 1962, he began his artistic journey in theatre, directing plays like Bernard Shaw's Arms and Man and Dario Fo's Trumpets and Raspberries, before moving to cinema. His debut film Silsila Gindani, Ice on Fire, 1992, swept nine national awards, and since then he has crafted some of Sri Lanka's most celebrated films. Many films of which received international recognition like Ira Madhyama, Pavaru Bulalu, etc. Over the years, his works such as Akasa Kusum, With You, Without You, and the powerful documentary Silence in the Courts have pushed the boundaries of South Asian cinema, often taking on themes of memory, conflict, and justice. His historical drama, Gadi Children of the Sun, in 2019, won the Cultural Diversity Award at the Asia Pacific Screen Awards, while his latest multilingual film, Paradise 2023, premiered at the Busan International Film Festival and won the prestigious GameStop Award. To initiate today's conversation, we are delighted to have with us Dr. Shilpa Sanjeev, Assistant Professor in Department of English, St. Joseph University, Bangalore. Dr. Sanjeev completed a PhD in Comparative Literature at EFLU, Hyderabad, with a focus on performance theory and contemporary theatre practices. Her research spans modernist and postmodern poetry, performance and film studies, South Asian cultural studies, and Indian theatre traditions. With such inspiring voices here today, we look forward to an enriching dialogue. Back to you, Dr. Shilpa Sanjeev, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Muskan. Extremely delighted to be here. I'm very grateful to TFO for this opportunity. My thanks to Professor Nikhila and Professor Geeta for initiating such a wonderful community. And extremely elated to have the director, Mr. Vithanage, with us. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Speak of the director, we know him as one of the most influential and outspoken directors of in Sri Lankan cinema, and he's had to battle detractors and censorship, particularly in the context of films such as Death on a Full Moon Day, which deals with the Naxalite uprising, and it faced like a long year-long struggle before it finally released, right? So even in films like With You, Without You, very Vithanage has very unashamed, unabashedly kind of directs in a way which kind of confronts the insurmountable differences within the fabric of post-war Sri Lankan society, right? And he's consistently sort of made art that is both socially and politically conscious. So, as I'd like to just remember the words of Faiz, who himself was a victim of censorship. He says, they might be able to snuff out candles, but if they're so mighty, let them try to snuff out the moon. So, and Paradise is one of those films where the political is very dexterously woven into the personal without any attempt to overstate it, right? Something which is true of most of his films, including the Conflict trilogy. There are no elaborate sort of war spectacles and the kind of images that we often associated when we with when we're talking about a war-torn sort of a country, right? For example, there are films like Kannadil Muttamital that show a very different kind of filmmaking, which is not quite what we see in his films, which I thought is a very interesting way of thinking about war without, without directly talking about it, right? To see the aftermath, what happens after it. So Paradise is a Sri Lankan Indian film released in 2023. It features an Indian couple, Keshav and Amrita, who arrive in Sri Lanka during the 2022 economic crisis. So while the film is essentially about the implosion of their marriage, the seemingly happy marriage, it is also the story of a nation emerging from the trauma of a war, only to kind of plunge into this kind of a crisis, right? So basic services we know were diesel, electricity, all of these were completely disrupted. And it was a kind of a very unprecedented sort of moment for the country, triggered by mismanagement and debt, leading to the fall of the government, right, the Rajpaksa government. And so the country witnessed widespread protests. And this is a film that tells that story also, right? Uh, so if in With You, Without You, his earlier film, you can see those echoes of Dostoevsky's text, the meek one, and obviously the pawnbroker. You find that the Ramayana text, obviously, because uh, uh, that's a very that's an underlying that's an underscoring narrative that frames our story. Uh, it is there, but I'd also like to point out, how the protagonist Amrita, she says this. She quotes very astutely, A.K. Ramanujan. She says, there are 300 versions of the story, right? And this narrative too, in a way, resists, easy categorizations of hero, villain, damsels in distress. So one of the very interesting aspects about the film is how this myth is kind of reworked, right? Um, so we have this couple who appear to be in blissful sort of marriage, arriving in an Eden-like place. But it's a violent kind of meeting of hierarchical worlds, of class and identity, that kind of unfolds. And so this sort of, I think, connects to this idea of recent uh, trends in cinema that we've been seeing of films and series that talk about this idea of eating the rich, right? So it's this, for example, the films, The Menu or Triangle of Sadness, or the series, for example, you have The White Lotus, right? So wealthy travelers kind of descend upon this usually Asian exotic exotic locations, and it's then mess unfolds, right? And so you constantly trying to rethink this idea of what constitutes a paradise, right? And yeah, the word paradise itself, um, it speaks of a kind of a pre-agrarian society where it's the archetypal sort of a setting for the original sin, right? And Sri Lanka has, through Occidental eyes, many times been referred to as the paradise. First, in 13th century by Marco Polo, and then you have people like Anton Chekhov and Aldous Huxley refer to it as a paradise, right? So obviously, this kind of sets up this conversation that overconsumption and the
లేదా జూమ్ లేకుండా ఉన్నారా ఇంట్లో
of tourists, right? And Paradise for me was this film that showcased a very interesting encounter between the self and the other, right? So on very striking, juxtaposition that happens in the film of these two different kinds of worlds is when Keshav is celebrating his the fact that Netflix recently picked up his adaptation of Squid Game, right? Squid Game, which is which is itself very pertinent, because as we know, it is Squid Game is this thing that there is a scathing, criticism of late capitalism and so on. So that in itself is an interesting sort of a reference, right? And so he is celebrating this win, and then uh, and in the midst of all of this, there's this protest happening, right? And the beginning itself was a very sort of odd and interesting sort of beginning. We hear we hear an advertisement in English playing out, right? So very glossy images of Sri Lanka, and it's like a tourist advertisement, reinforcing this idea of being a paradise, right? And we only know that this is a narrative that is going to very quickly be ruptured, right? So it's laying the ground for that. And so I was also thinking that a lot of times this film has been categorized as a suspense and a thriller, right? So one of the most um, strikingly intense moments in the film is this slightly long-winded sort of a scene where you have the couple returning after the tour in the beginning, and they're in this car, they're in the Land Cruiser, right? It's a very interesting scene because you have Keshav in the car. I was very nonchalantly talking about partying and finally being able to swim in money, right? He remains perfectly oblivious to the political and economic reality around him. You have protests unfolding in the background as they're driving, right? And he's constantly seen as somebody who's basking in this insulation, right? And so there's a suspense that builds there, and you're not sure what's going to really happen. Okay, and obviously this is in stark contrast to Andrew, their driver. You can see the anxiety sort of framing his countenance, but he also knows that okay, they're tourists, so there's not too much that might happen. But it's a very sort of nice way in which this juxtaposition happens, right? And so you can see him worry as he's like driving through this mass of protesting bodies, right? Uh, and the car itself is an interesting place. It's like this kind of a cocoon that where they're insulated from their caste class position, right? And obviously, Kesha was framed as this consuming tourist. He wants to eat venison, right? Despite hunting being banned, right? He's not worried about diesel running out. As long as he's able to get his phone, which is about 35 kilometers away, right? And one very very striking scene is when Shri, their help, right, in the guest house, brings candlesticks, and Amrita remarks, "Oh, how romantic!" Right? Only to be told, "Power cut, madam." Right? It's a very it's a nice way of talking about this without really like doing it, right? And the deer itself, the Samba deer, like obviously the deer is again a motif that keeps coming back, and this mythical, like the mythical golden deer of Ramayana, appears at very opportune moments to maybe shake Amrita out of a certain kind of reverie, maybe an apolitical reverie, right? And so this figure of the deer is constantly juxtaposed against the gun, right? For example, there is this. Let me share my screen. There's this scene where we also know that Amrita is this aspiring writer. She wants to write, and obviously Keshav sort of does not take her too seriously because he says, okay, why don't you just stop blogging, and if you would you'd do better with the novel. So she's writing about this very interesting encounter that she has. There is the deer in the background, and there is the gun pointing at the deer. So she's writing, it made me wonder how we could kill a creature so majestic as this, deer. So this is Amrita, right? And so this is the kind of person that Amrita is. She also in some ways reminds me of Selvi in some ways, right? From With You, Without You. Now the burglary becomes this interesting sort of a turning point in this entire narrative, right? It represents that reversal coming right after that love-making scene. It is, I was thinking about this as a symbolic castration of Keshav, where he's trying to, attempting to reclaim his phallus. And that's where, this reclamation is what's going to kind of create the rest of the story, right? So, the traditional gender roles of the earlier half are maybe completely destabilized. So you have, um, uh, uh, you know, uh, it's completely destabilized, and the paradise, is finally like lost, right? But the idea of the paradise also suggests that something that's already always lost, right? And the fissures maybe in their marriage, uh, uh, in their relationship present from the beginning kind of burst forth in the second half. And until the burglary, you have Amrita performing her femininity in a way that kind of empowered Keshav's masculine subject position. If you remember that cave scene, they are they're the tour is happening, and she kind of stretches out her hand, asking for his support. And then after that, she says, when Andrew says, we believe that. Ravana is in slumber and he hopefully wakes up, right, to save Lanka, right, to save Sri Lanka. And then she says, what if Ravan woke up and kidnapped me? So Keshav says, uh, I will, it'll wake the Ram in me. So she invokes the Ram in him in that sense, right? The cracks, I'd say, were visible earlier, but obviously exacerbated after the burglary. For example, again, right before their lovemaking scene, Keshav declares, oh, finally, we can be happy. So that says, weren't we happy before this, right? Uh, and post that, he sort of has to perform this masculinity in a more aggressive manner, right? He kind of tries to displace the blame onto her, saying, she it all happened because she didn't close the window, right? And in this very sort of telling moment, they say, is this the shithole that you wanted to kind of paradise becomes that, right? You wanted to come all along. And then he says, but she says, you said it would be cheap. And then he says, yeah, it is. We're doing them a favor by being here, right? So that sense of entitlement uh, that kind of ambivalence is embodied through Kesha, right? Of this consuming tourist, right? And and finally, I think in one of those most critical moments, they're having dinner, and she says, they actually hear, they don't see. So the deer also is heard in many ways, right? The deer is presumably shot. We hear gunshots, and we imagine that the deer is being shot, and he says in this very extremely hostile manner, like he's punning, and he says, "Oh dear," right? And I think that sort of, and she just gets up and goes. I want to also kind of show you one more set of sequences. You can see this, uh, right? So there is this image of Keshav at the dinner table. Very interesting imagery happening here. There is this, uh, you know, this obviously phallic symbol happening here, and then the whiskey, and then there's Keshav, and then And then Amrita, there's this water and light, and she's a voice of reason. So I thought it was interesting framing, right? And so we have post burglary, this as I was saying, this performance of masculinity enters a crisis, a seeming crisis, and turns very aggressive, right? And there's that bit where he hears Iqbal singing, and he sneers, he's begging for your attention, right? And immediately afterwards, to assuage his a sense of inadequacy, he kind of downs the local addict, and in an obvious act of consuming the other, right? Now, the interesting part is that a crime happened, a burglary has taken place, yet neither the narrative nor the audience expects this to turn into a whodunit, right? Because it doesn't really matter, right? The trio picked up by the police are the most usual of suspects, because they're targeted due to a prefigured sense of criminality, right? The estate worker is an easy target, easy scapegoat, is immediately branded a thief before he is fatally assaulted by the police and ironically taken in their own vehicle to the hospital. So the thing is that he's never even dignified with a name, right? And he's always just a thief. So this is also how caste is operating, right? And our protagonist, who's very seemingly secure in his privilege, has no qualms about pressuring the police and saying, the high commissioner will intervene if I just make a call. Qualms about condemning the estate worker as thief, right? She asks, "Are you sure?" And he has to perform this masculinity once more, and he says, "Yes, I am." Right? I saw him, right? And then you have Sergeant Bandara in that mob scene, when protesters are protesting, and he says, against the police brutality, he says he bellows to them in Sinhala, right? And obviously, this is a very pointed sort of reminder about the linguistic politics, because we know the 1956 Sinhala only Act was at the epicenter of a lot of the conflict that was to follow Sri Lanka and haunt the nation thereon, right? And one of the most uh, overtly political scenes in the films is this direct exchange that happens between Sergeant Bandara and Amrita, right? So she asks him what is the value of human life, okay, and he says that during election time it is worth one vote, and then he sniggers with his colleagues, right? And then he casually kind of remarks to Keshav that the estate workers will be getting a good thrashing by now, and he's obviously poisoning Keshav's mind against the dark one, right? So that's how he addresses Shri. Here, obviously we also see that how ethnic identities have been constructed by taking recourse to this Aryan origin theory of the Sinhalese. Like, obviously, this has been long debunked, but there is that also, right? And ironically, the investigation officer, who has 40 plus years of experience, starts the investigation only after someone has been picked up and tortured to death for the crime, right? That's when he even comes to the crime scene and investigates, right? So even this figure, Sergeant Bandara. Bandara is also a name in his earlier work, right? So I was just wondering why Bandara again, right? So Bandara is this relic of this colonial administration, and he, in some ways, becomes this figurehead. Of a Sri Lankan state that is kind of rendered impotent, like a toothless lion, if I mean, He says to Keshav, "I am a loyal dog, and you are my master," right? And so Keshav's final attempt to reclaim his this phallus, right, is by literally picking up the gun, right, and is thwarted by his wife, who quite literally blows his head off, right? So we are left with Amrita's question hanging in the air of whether Andrew really believes what he told the police was true. Right? So to conclude, Paradise does not really offer easy resolutions in that sense. Um, Perhaps the only discernible villain here is or are the global post-colonial economic social structures, and in such an extra daily sort of a situation, the insulated bourgeoisie personal space implodes and cannot obviously withstand the pervasive political. So those are just some of my thoughts. There's lots more, lot of scenes that I'd like to look at. Perhaps I will stop for now and open it up for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Prasanna sir, would you like to contribute to what Shilpa ma'am said, or would you like to hear what others have to say?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, I can.
Yes. So, I would like to listen to others also, and it was what Shilpa, said and her review of the film. As a director, I was, I'm, let's say, perfectly. She had made a point, made points on the film, and I think I should not interfere with the others also. So I'm ready to listen, and if whenever you want me to add, I will join you. Okay, I'll be here.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. The platform is open for discussion. Anybody would like to ask a question or add in to something?
Can I come in, Muskan?
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, first of all, to the director for making it convenient to come for this session. And thank you so much, Shilpa, for your extensive analysis of the film. One of the first things that struck me was this whole issue of tourism. Post pandemic, there has been, such an upsurge in tourism globally. And we are also seeing on social media a lot of images of protest in different countries, like Spain, for instance. They're having huge rallies of anti-tourist protests and all of this. It's a kind of pointer to what happens when tourists go to a place to visit without being sensitive to the local culture and customs and the local population. Apart from, of course, the rising prices of accommodation, etc., etc. That was one thing. And of course, Shilpa has already dealt with it very well, this whole question of how there is this revisiting of mythology, the Ramayana. And there is a lot of irony there, where in mythology it is Ravan's kingdom, and then it is the land, it's a dazzling land of plenty. But the Sri Lanka of today is a modern nation in a state of crisis. And also, Ram goes there as a rescuer, and here you have Keshav going there as a very privileged person and an entitled person. And Ram returns, victorious. But here, Keshav does not return at all. So these kind of, references to mythology, but at the same time subverting these features makes it very interesting. And I also saw it as a kind of road movie, the belonging to the genre of the road movie, because there are a number of scenes which are shot yeah, in the vehicle. They're moving in the car from one place to the other. And more importantly, just like in road movies, it is also um, an excuse for developing the character arc. So you have these two people, both Keshav and Amrit, sorry, Keshav and Amrita, uh, recognizing the fault lines in their own relationship. And so that kind of self-discovery that happens in a lot of road movies is happening here as well. And finally, I must say that I found the character of Keshav received too harsh a punishment. Like he was killed off accidentally, of course, in the end, but uh, uh, that kind of an end came as, a shock. So these are some of my thoughts.
Would anybody else like to come in? You can unmute yourself and ask your questions, or anything you'd like to add in.
Hi. Mm. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are. You can go
Okay.
ahead.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Shilpa for such an enriching discussion and for Prasanna sir for making such a brilliant and visually and aesthetically rich a text. I would not call this just a film, but it is a very important text, I feel. And it is like the opening scenes and the constant referring to the country being on fire reminded me of Yasmin Goneratna's poem Big Match 1983. And it was like the idea of how the country is on fire, but like for tourists it is seen as a bonfire and not as a crisis. So that was, I think, like some ideas which resonated with Gunaratna's poem as well. And I also agree with when Dr. Shilpa talked about the fault lines in the main protagonists relationships, um, and how it is visually reinforced by, like, you can see the dinner table as, having a sort of like literally drawing a line between the two. So which I sort of interpreted as, a sort of subversion of the Lakshman Rekha that we have in the mythology, which is wherein Sita is like Amrita's character and Sita's characters, as we are known, like they have different interactions with their sort of prescribed lines that are drawn and boundaries that are drawn that they need to follow. So I feel like that was very visually, that was a very strong visual imagery that was used to reinforce all of this. And also, I really enjoyed how the in the opening shots, the vastness of the scenery sort of reinforces the minutiae of human life. Like all of this is happening, and like the triviality of something, like electronics getting stolen at a travel destination, or like when you are traveling, your electronics get stolen. So like for you it might be a huge thing, but like in the broader scheme of things, it is a very, like, it's like a droplet in a huge waterfall that is again reinforced visually through the pan shots and the beautiful scenery that is reinforced and making the human very small element in the frame. And I just, yeah, so those are a few things that I thought were of note. And I would like again, Prasanna sir could maybe comment on how he thought of creating such a visual treat for the viewers and conveying all of these um, messages so subtly yet so powerfully.
Thank you so much for speaking. Anybody else would like to ask something or add in something?
Muskan, can I come in?
Yes, ma'am, of course.
Yeah, so thank you, Shilpa, for giving us such a wonderful overview of the film, particularly its gender politics with regard to the way in which masculinity kind of, through the character of Keshav, the way in which it works in the film and how it is overlaid by so many, other kinds of privileges, including, of course, his class, and also he's coming from India, and this kind of an entitled person who's got his big break, and so on. It was wonderful listening to you, Shilpa, and thank you, Prasanna sir, for making it to our discussion. Actually, I want to take off from two points, one made by Shilpa and another made by Geeta. Shilpa, I thought that a point you made about the deer, not as a symbol of enticement for the woman, that kind of, she desires it, and therefore she's later punished for, within quotes, for her wrongdoing, as it happens in Ramayana. But here, as in some ways, a symbol of moral awakening, moral or ethical, awakening, and also probably political awakening, as you said. So in this way, and also this idea of subversion that Titiksha was talking about, I thought the ending of the film was dramatic, of course, but also so important, in engaging with the politics of Ramayana in a very, very different and subversive way. If, as Amrita sees, that Ravana is not this kind of a monstrous, devilish kind of a man, but someone, as we see in the case of the Tamils, who have been wronged historically, or given the circumstances over there. So everyone in Sri Lanka, in some ways, is a victim of the ongoing conflict, and Amrita becomes aware that this Ravana is not this devilish figure who needs to be destroyed. The way that Ram equals Keshav seems to be looking at them, but someone who needs to be protected from Ram. I thought, it just blew my mind to see that kind of an interpretation, particularly in the kind of context we inhabit here in India, and that Sita is, or Amrita is able to empathize with someone who is supposedly, mythologically the wrongdoer. So I thought that at so many levels, at the level of gender and gendered and marital relationship, but also in engaging with this mythology, this film was doing something so subtly but so importantly, that that is what I felt was really very strong for me in the film. And also many little details that the film takes care to construct in terms of different identities. For instance, there is Mr. Andrews, who's a Christian. There is Iqbal, who is a cook and a Muslim. There are the Tamils. There are these two Hindus coming, ostensibly upper caste Hindus coming from India. And there are the Sinhalese themselves. So this tapestry of different identities and the interaction that happens among them, who is, in some ways allowed to remain neutral, who is historically the suspect, irrespective of what they do, they are historically the suspect. I think all these have come out wonderfully well in the film. Thanks for making a film like this, sir, and thanks to Shilpa and all the others for engaging with the film. Thank you. I'll stop at this point, and over to you, Muskan.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anybody else like to come in
Yeah, I just
and
wanted to
add anything?
ma'am's point. She said, Amrita says, in the Jain Ramayana, it is Sita who fights Ravana, and that's a very interesting manner in which the whole thing is getting foreshadowed.
Yeah, except that it's not Ravana she's fighting here, but Ram himself. So
Yeah, so the Ravana thing is also, completely sort of, it is blurred. You don't know who hero, anti-hero. That idea is also completely blurred, right?
Anyone else? Yeah.
Actually, just because Nikhila ma'am said, it was also fascinating me the parallel between Ramayana and Paradise. So one thing I just noticed that even in the Bengali version of Ramayana, sometimes it is said that Ravana did not kidnap Sita because he wanted to have her. Instead, he knew that Sita was Lakshmi, and that is why he needed her for his kingdom only, for the prosperity of his kingdom. So I think this version is not too much said nationwide in India, but I think that was a parallel that we admired here, that Amrita is fighting in favor of Ravana up to some extent. So I think that was an interesting parallel. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shubhi. Anything else? Anyone else want to come in? Would anybody else like to ask any question or come in to say anything? Add on something?
Maniraj sir is a great admirer of the director. He has been sharing his films, so I'm sure he'll have lots to say. Sir?
No, I don't have anything much to say to Prasanna, but I just wanted to ask him one thing, that looking at his filmography, especially I could call it as portrait, looking at his Death and Full Moon Day, Iramadiyama, With You, Without You, and now Paradise coming as a portrait. In all these films, and including Silence of the Court, a documentary what he has made, what is interesting for me is he is looking at the violence within the, state-created violence within Sinhala society, where Tamils and Tamil migrants are othered and they're looked at as others. So violence on others is also perpetrating violence on within the society, because in both Death on a Full Moon Day, Iramadima, you can see that there is a violence within the Sinhala society, which is connected, complexly connected to the violence which they are perpetrating on the others. So a frenzy is developed against the migrants in the North Jaffna area, and you see the travails of those migrants. And of course, all his films are sympathetic to towards the Tamil victims, but he's also pointing at many in all his films that violence within the society. You can see it in his films, that a soldier, a young soldier coming back home, looks at the family, what is the state of his family there, and what his sister is up to, and what all the youth is up to. So he is looking not only at the violence perpetrated on Tamil migrants, and he also historically looks at it. And With You, Without You is such a complex story of violence within, and brings forth the idea of violence itself. So Prasanna is it's very interesting to that violence on others sprouts or brings in much more violence within the society, which seeps into the society, which is very relevant for us in India. That when we other a particular section of our society who is living with us, it also brings out the caste violence and gender violence within our society, and it makes it more violent. As we increase the violence on others, it also spreads inside deeper. That comes out very much. I mean, one of his great films is Without You. I just wanted to hear from Prasanna what his thoughts on it are. What I gathered from his 4 or 5 films, what I viewed, very fascinating films. I wanted to ask him. I was interested to know what he says about it.
Yes. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah. And okay, fine. Thank you, sir. Thank you for a comment, and thank you all for your comments. I think any film should leave more room for, I mean, imaginative power of the viewer. Because if the filmmaker, if it's a sign of the filmmaker that he give dignity to the reviewer. Here, or any viewer, dignity to the viewer means, giving, trusting your instinct, trusting your power of imagination. Because I'm telling that uh, it's not when you do it, sometimes the message, because our cinema, our main South Asian cinema, was born out of stage theater, but in Europe the cinema was born with the painting and the photography. So there's a big difference when it comes to exposition. The subjects, our ones are more, I mean, it's like, the characters are keeping their hearts upon their sleeves, like talking about the emotions, but in real life it's more subtler. It's so when you made that point, sir, yes, I have witnessed violence, and but I have not directly experienced the violence of the ethnic war. But I have seen, but I have been unable to act. Let's say though I have been campaigning for the rights of the minorities, all the minorities, whether they are Tamils or Muslims in Sri Lanka. But I think as a human being, I should use the word here. Not only me, my generation have been impotent. Impotent, I use the word here because we have been unable to stop the carnage which unraveled, I mean, in the past 3 decades against the minorities. So the only way to express uh, for me is using my medium. And being a filmmaker gives me an opportunity to express the feelings of what I have witnessed. So all these films, so it's a manifestation of that feeling of being, at the violence that we are each people. I mean, sorry, each other is causing the other person, and Sri Lanka uh, has been with the war, and even before the war, especially after 1950s, as Shilpa said in her, I mean, brilliant analysis. It's each government has created polarization and created the other person. So Sinhala, for Sinhalese, the Tamils have become the other. Others for the Sinhalese, Muslims have become others. So it's not us. It's we are the owners of the land. We are the real owners, and we. So that with that feeling, when the countries polarize on ethnic lines, as a human being, what I can do, because yeah, I have been here. I should must add that I have witnessed, the as today with you all, the spirit of debate, discussion in India. I know that the limitations are also there, especially when it's come to arts. Just from the stories that I have heard from the other filmmakers, how the space is squeezing in India. But I have in 80s and 90s, 90s for the first time I visited India, I have witnessed that, and I have been part of these discussions and all that. So all that helped me to make Paradise. So thank you for making that point. And since Sir made, I mean, references to With You Without You, probably, after today, I'll be sharing a Vimeo link of that film also, and maybe the film that I made before Paradise, Children of the Sun, with you all. Or I will send it to Akila. Nikila. So then she can share it with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prasanna sir. Um, David sir, or anyone else, Sarakeshwar sir, would you like to speak anything? Any question or anything else?
I couldn't watch it again, but I watched it when it appeared in OTT long back. I thought it's a very well structured movie. There is a personal story of the the couple, and then the story of the nation, and then the story of the two nations and the relationship. Uh, all these things are interwoven very effectively, bringing the contemporary and the mythology together. I thought is very interesting. It would be interesting to see uh, the relationship between these two nations uh, in the films that have been made in India, and then this film is quite interesting in that sense. Uh, though it is made by a Sri Lankan director, there are Indian actors, and it was well received here. If whoever whom I have met who have seen the film have praised it a lot. So in that sense, uh, tracing this history through the films, I thought would be interesting. Thank you for the discussion, and thank you for the movie, sir.
Thank you, sir. David sir or Sanjay sir, Abhishek sir, anybody?
And just a interesting, curiosity. Sham was a bigger presence in his films, especially in With You Without You, and how he could zero in on Roshan Matthew for that role. But of course, Anjali Patel has appeared in another film. Indian actors are regular presence in his film, but how Sham's role in Sham has been a frequenter with Prasanna, and how he did zero in on whether he was having that character with Roshan in mind or what.
Oh, yeah, thank you for a question. So let's speak about Sham. Sham, I know as a theater person, and I love to work with theater actors because in recently I didn't direct a play, but I read scripts, because I believe theater gives opportunity to work with people, other actors, with the actors, creating, the creating role, creating and making it live in theater within 2 or 3 months or 4 months. It's a you know kind of it brings a lot of joy. So though I have not directed Sham in theater, I have seen his performances, and I wanted him when I did my first film with him, With You Without You, which you mentioned, and I think it was his first film role. He has not done a feature film before. Maybe yeah, I think he has done only a commercial, TV commercial. So I love actors who could, uh, you know, keep, a lot of, especially that character needed that also, that we see what's happened when it's like, uh, actors, like, they are like very clear ponds, uh, uh, because in a clear pond you can see the beneath, and good actors bring that quality when they're acting. I mean, they don't do much outwardly with mannerisms and all that, but inside the burning or the yearning, those feeling, which it, again, I was, I'm like, I here also add, I should add about the trust in the audience. They will see it. They will read the character. So the good actors let us, when we are watching films, they let us to read them. They don't hide the feelings. So Sham has that quality. So, which in with you without you, with the suppressed sexuality, all that, with his ambition and all that's again, uh, and love and suppression, love, all these things. I mean, he was able to brought to the cinema, and even he did in my, which I did a film called sorry, Children of the Sun, and he did a supporting role. And here again, when I wrote the script, actually I didn't write keeping him in mind, but I approached him and I said to him, Sham, can you be like, wind? Because wind, most of the time, wind doesn't make sound, most of the time, but it could make big sound. And it's just, you cannot see it, but it's there. Can you be like that? A character who doesn't have any opinion, but at the end, I mean, it you will break that. You had an opinion, but for survival, for I mean, for your job, you are not expressing it. So, but always the audience will find that you had a point of view, you had an attitude, but everything is suppressed. Everything is undisclosed. So can you be like Win? So and we did a small rehearsal, and I found that he's ideal for the role. Then from that, and from the first day, there was no issue. Roshan Matthew, I have seen his films, Malayalam films, and I I approached him through filmmaker Gitu Mohandas, who did Liars Dies, and she's a cinematographer Rajiv Ravi's wife. So Roshan agreed to read the script. Then I shared the script and I went to Cochin and had a discussion with him. About the script, and he came with his notes. I went there with my notes about the character, and we discussed the character, and our notes match. So from that moment, uh, I mean, it was a great relationship, actor director, and I must thank Roshan. I always thank Roshan for, it's not a role that many let's say actors would like to take, because I mean, it's not a heroic role. It's people will, like we did in our discussion today, will with this character will be questioning about the masculinity, violence, all that. It's, yeah, this is the real, the, I think, because I wrote it looking at myself. So I said to Roshan, I'm not judging this character. It's so, if you are not judging the character, if you are not judging the character, and if you accept that it's part of us is there, then it will be that will be the code of the shruti of the your performance. And so that's how Roshan agreed, and it was a pleasure to work with Roshan and Darshan, and a high regard for, I mean, those two actors. The discipline, they never ask the dialogues. I always come to set prepared and exactly knows what they do, what they have to do. Because again, when it's come to actors, I would like to work with them, trusting them, and I believe that female will surpass my judgment on this female character. So I always told Darshana, surprise me, because I want to give more independence to the character than I wrote while directing the film. So she did it perfectly well. And I have, I mean, high regard for Darshana, and what she brought up for the character.
Thank you so much, sir. Sanjay sir, you unmuted yourself. Can you go ahead and ask your question?
Hello.
Uh, yes, sir, you're audible. Please go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Well, I was glad, in fact, when initially Geeta referred to the irony in the film. Particularly the situational irony in the film, for me, is very striking. Even I mean, I see the title also as ironic. When you say paradise, at one level, well, there is, I mean, when you look at the landscape, it's beautiful, the nature, animals. But on the other level, you have economic and political crisis. Sri Lanka, as presented in Ramayana, is like we say golden, like city of gold, Sone ki Lanka, like we say. And here is Sri Lanka, which is going through this kind of crisis. So again, it belies our expectation. There's something which the audience is expecting. Even the characters who are expecting, and they find something else in return. Is the situation is not coming up to their expectations. So even the Keshav, for example, he says that he would be like Rama to rescue, like Sita if she is kidnapped, if his wife is kidnapped. In fact, it is Rama, I mean, in the sense that it is Keshav who has to be rescued from this situation. And all the most of the dialogues, they show a kind of irony. When Keshav, for example, is saying that they are going to be filthy rich, it is just the opposite, that their goods are being stolen. The thieves enter the resort, and finally, I mean, they lose their laptop and mobiles. And even when Amu receives a call from her mother is a bit worried, and she is saying that no, nothing will happen, that we are very secured and there absolutely no problem. So that also finally belies her expectation, because we find completely opposite to what she imagines. The hunting deer, again, here, initially Keshav is thinking of hunting a deer, as he agrees with the person, the assistant at the resort. And finally, what happens that the human beings are finally hunted, not the deer, but human beings. So the first one to die, that supposedly who is supposed to be a thief, and because of the torture, finally he dies in the hospital. Uh, so initially, what we thought that they would be hunting a deer and the human being is hunted, in fact, killed. And later on, the police officer, sergeant, and finally Keshav also is being killed. So and here I take it as the ending as open, because when Amu asks this person that, do you believe in what you said at the police station, that this is how the things happened. So there I think the ending is open, and it, from one angle, it seems that she has killed her husband. It's not that accidentally she kills, but on purpose, because if we look at the expression of her face, that this is something which has been boiling from the beginning, that she's very disappointed with the behavior of her husband. And when Keshav starts killing people, indiscriminately firing on the large crowd, so many people are going to die. And finally, one way of stopping that is to kill Keshav, because otherwise it's going to be a kind of massacre. So that ending also keeps it open, because I forgot the name of this person who doesn't say anything. Finally, the film ends with the question, not with the answer. So that is very interesting in the film. And if we look at the reactions, if we look at the gestures of these two characters, Keshav and Amu, husband is most of the time looking inward. He is preoccupied with himself, with his project. He is thinking all the time about his planning, how he's going to celebrate. And even after things were stolen, then he's only focusing on himself. He has no concern with what is happening outside, the crisis in the country, or even at the police station when they are sitting, we can see that the Amu is looking outward and she is looking at dogs. And later on in one of the scenes, she is also feeding them. And here Keshav is still preoccupied with the same thoughts. Even at one scene, the Amu is smiling while eating, and Keshav is asking, "How can you be happy?" No, it's like a kind of judgment that you have to go along with my line of thoughts. I mean, you don't have right to be something different. So husband is looking inward and wife is looking outward. There's both, there is a kind of contrast. Even in most of the scenes, that it is Amu who is, for example, when children, they come to sell guavas, then she is the one who is interested. And Keshav is most of the time on his mobile. And she is the one who is interested in scenery, and she goes along with this person, with the driver, to see forest. and finally she discovers the beauty of the landscape and nature in the country. So in a way, uh, if we look at the difference between tourist and traveler, it is more like the husband is behaving like a tourist, even and it is the wife who is the Amu who is behaving like a traveler, at least to some extent, not so deeply, but she is at least interested in the local situations. She is interested in the life of the local people. But Keshav is behaving like a consumer, like, this kind of distinction has been made by several people like Hippolyte Taine or Nicolas Bouvier, that the tourists are mainly concerned with the they have some pre-planned things, and they go accordingly, and they go there as a consumer. And travelers, they engage more deeply with the local culture, with the local population. So and finally what happens that even if Keshav is not interested in all these things, but he has to be caught in this situation. Finally he has to deal with it, because because of all these problems, the problems of diesel, problems of people protesting, and because of the economic economic and political crisis, and finally the theft happens, and he has to deal with it. He was not interested, but he has been unwittingly trapped in this kind of situation. And one last point which interests me is a kind of iceberg effect in this film, um, which we use in for the novels of Ernest Hemingway, that there are certain things which are on the surface, and there are other things which are at the subterranean level, that which is happening. There are so many things we see through the camera of the crisis through which the country is going, but there is something happening also in the relationship between the husband and the wife. They have spent 5 years of their life together, and it seems there have been some kinds of problems, and which finally they are going to crop up in this like the celebration of their 5 years of marital life. So the problems of conjugal life are finally cropping up, but they are hinted through different scenes, through also the expressions of the wife. We often see the expressions of the husband and the expression of wife. They are different. They are not reacting similarly to the situations, and there is a kind of gap which deepens further towards the end of the film, and it creates a kind of um, leading to a situation where they might divorce also. The crisis which is outside there in the country, that economic crisis, the political crisis, there is also this marital crisis which appears in the film. So thank you very much for making such a wonderful film, and making these layers which allow us to see this film at several levels, with open ending at the same time. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Would Sridhar, sir, would you like to add something?
Okay. See, I like this movie when it got released itself. I watched it, and the kind of picturization, all that very good. So out of that, now after watching it again now, I felt like that the back of the story, the film is as the lead character Amrita says to the local guide that there were 300 versions of Ramayana, and whatever version he is giving is
his own version. And it seems Jain Ramayana Pamukkavyam seems to be the back of the story of the film. I don't know, a director can tell us, but I liked it. In the film also, Amrita says that I don't know that story, but I only know the Jains have a first Ramayana. It's called Paumakavyam. And in that, Ravan is the hero who is the savior of his people, but he was projected as a devil in the Brahminical Ramayana. So, in that in the film, what Amrita says to her guide is that Sita killed Ravana, but here Ravana is her own husband. So, in that way, I could see that state which is in a way state which is responsible for all the kind of violence, instead of solving the problem, it turned itself as a problem. So maybe state with us have a kind of reading it. I don't know. The director can say more. I like the film. Thank you. Thank you, Prasanna sir.
Thank you so much.
Shall I add, Muskan?
Yes, please, sir.
Yeah. So, thank you, Sridhar sir. I think as a director, me or anyone should not interfere with the viewer's version, because then I'm going against the concept of the film. Because like there were 300 versions of Ramayana, which Ramanujan, wrote a book, and I have read that book also. So there should be many versions, and always trust your instinct and intellect, instinct and intellect both. So a director should not say whether which is correct, which is wrong, because then he's actually degrading his work by giving a definitive version. He doesn't have a right, or he or she doesn't have a right to give a definitive version. It belongs to the audience once the film is completed and it becomes in the public domain. Thank you, sir.
I'm not expecting answer for this, but I love the way the picture was done. And there may be many more Ramayanas in the future also. No worry about it. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the film.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to contribute?
Just kind of responding to Sanjay sir, and that guava scene was the very interesting, because that's a scene that kind of keeps that repeats. But towards the second half, you see that the cruiser just passes by, and you see both the parties, both the children and Amrita kind of the air has changed, so it's suspicion that fills the air. So that kind of is a very sort of telling scene about how things have changed, and how very definitively the political has entered the personal, and yeah, and the distinction between traveler and tourist. Yeah, it's a very insightful one in this regard.
Thank you, Shilpa ma'am. Anybody else? Shavya ma'am. Anybody else? Sudeep sir.
I think Abhishek is unmuted himself, Muskan.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes,
yeah,
Samantha. Yes, please go ahead.
yes. So, hi. So fascinating discussion. I saw something of Mother India in Amrita and Mother Nature to be specific. And here in this film, Keshav seems to obviously embody this kind of masculinized capitalist ethos, where he's acquisitive, instrumental, while Amrita is figured as this feminized embodiment of nature. So this binary is central to both the exploitation of women and the environment under global capital. Uh, this allegorical structure, I was wondering if it is a conscious principle in the film, and how do we in the context of contemporary Sri Lanka, how do we see this dialectic between masculinized capital and this feminized nature, especially considering the issues like agrarian collapse and the fragility of an economy that is so tourist dependent.
Yeah, probably it was a question to the director. Abhishek, was it a
Yes,
question?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Some reason, Dr. Abhishek, I missed the last line of your question. Can you kindly repeat it?
Yeah, that this dialectic, it was obviously a very conscious framing, and in the context of contemporary Sri Lanka, especially with this economy that is so tourist dependent, and this unthinkable thing that happened in 2022. So that is what I wanted to ask. How much of it is a conscious framing of masculinized capitalism and feminized nature?
Thank you for the question. So I think some ideas, some moments come instinctively. Yeah, it's intuition rather than intellect. Uh, I should admit that. But same time, I'm not going to use the word intellect here, but I would like to use the word objectively. So certain things, because um, when I wrote the screenplay, it was during the which we call Aragale time, the struggle against the power cuts, shortages, and ousting at that time President Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa. So it was very hot in the sense it was all passion running high, and same time the tourism. Tourism at that time it was very low. But I know some of my friends, even or friends from southern part of India, came to Sri Lanka because uh, Sri Lanka became the Indian value went high, and the Sri Lankan rupee the value went cheaper. Yeah, if I give you by example, with 1 rupee, 1 INR, we could buy 4 rupees worth of goods in Sri Lanka. So because of that time, lot of tourism, tourists came to Sri Lanka, and there were a lot of funny that there was a lot of articles and videos appeared saying this is the time for Ravana to reemerge from his slumber. So that what I have used in the film, it was in the, I mean, the public domain. It was even because people believed, people they like to believe that there will be, I mean, some unforeseen figure coming and saving us from the economic crisis. But actually, the irony is India is the country that rescued mainly, I mean, at that time, Sri Lanka by giving 4 billion dollars, not 4 billion rupees, 4 billion worth of dollars and goods to Sri Lanka. So, so all these, I mean, I, I mean, it was so many things happening at the same time. Um, and the destinies, I always believe that our destinies as as Indians, me as a Sri Lankan, are entangled. Most of the things that happening in, our subcontinent, it affects each other. What affects to you affects to, in mainly with, but being a large country, I mean, what happens to you affects us. What happens that, so that, and even the culture, apart from Rama Sita, the Buddhism, a lot of other things, art, everything, it's I mean, it's entangled. So I use that, I'm not saying consciously, but I felt, it's I'm not saying this is a rework of Ramayana, because if I work on that line, then I would have been restricted to repeat the Ramayana in a modern manner, and it would have repeat my, the other things that I had to say about, the class disparity and indifference of the middle class, because all of us suddenly, when Sri Lanka became poor, all of us, was affected. All of us means middle class, working class, and the upper middle class also. They also didn't have petrol, or they also didn't have power. So all of, I mean, affected. So it was a time, you know, to reflect the class, disparity and the indifference to what was happening, because we middle class have been indifferent to the brewing economic situation. It didn't happen suddenly. It was brewing for maybe a decade. But the middle class and the upper middle class, I mean middle class, which I belong, we have been indifferent to what was unfolding or what was happening underneath. Uh, so all that affected the film, and all that was, I think, running inside me. So that's the basis uh, of the film. When it's come to tourism, of course, now even uh, it has become a kind of a bogus tourist trip. It's bogus in the sense it's mythology, but we all know it's not proven historically. It's mythology, but it has, as Romila Thapa once said, it has its own place. Ramayana, Mahabharata has its own place in Indian culture. So here also, but here it's not that much. The Ravana, I mean, it's not even because Buddhist was against Buddhist literature. The things the Ravana story, it's something trivial, because Buddhism doesn't believe, because there's a Jataka story, Buddhist Jataka story similar, and it dismisses Ramayana because all the ethics that it propagates goes against Ahimsa and detachment of Buddhism. So in Sri Lanka, not many people believe in this Ramayana story. But now, especially after the crisis is over, a lot of tourists are coming to Sri Lanka, and some were very unhappy with the film. Not the Indians, Sri Lankans. because it will affect tourism. So that's also another irony.
Thank you.
No more questions. Prasanna, if I can I ask you beyond the film? Paradise didn't face any problem with Sri Lankan state now?
Frankly, I mean, it didn't. I expected that the police, because censor board, I mean, Sri Lankan censor board is consisting of police forces also. But there was no, on the preview day, there was no police officer from that they didn't attend the screening, and it was passed by the censor board of Sri Lanka, and it was released. But the government also at that time has been changed. Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa has left the country, and Ranil Wickremesinghe, he was the president of Sri Lanka at that time. And with all that, I didn't face issues with the censor board like my earlier films, because maybe with the times the people were fed up with the people who will go against this kind of film were they also fed up with the nationalistic jingo. So mostly the censorship comes in Sri Lanka with the nationalistic jingo. I mean, Sinhalese nationalistic jingo, Sinhalese chauvinism. So it's they, because the country was in doldrums, and they were also disappointed. The nationalistic project has been failed. So therefore, film was lucky to escape.
But you faced the problem with two of your films. One of is Death in the Full Day and even Silence in the Court. Any other filmmakers are facing the same kind of this?
Every film, most of the films, like with the films that you referred earlier, you are also not banned, but they stall the screening, and they didn't issue the censor board certificate to me, because they said it gives a bad picture about the Sri Lankan army. And then the government changed. Then, because this happened in year 2014, then President Mahinda Rajapaksa was defeated, and Maithripala Sirisena president came to power. He became the president. So always when a new government comes, there is we call it like uh, interval in the hell. So there is always a breathing space. So within that breathing space, I was able to get a new census certificate without cuts. But earlier, Iramadiyava, Purahanda Kalvara, all the films I have been, had a lot of issues while I was producing, and sometimes after the when when I was ready to release, and some the films have been banned. Then Purahanda, I had to file a fundamental rights case in the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka, and after 1 year legal battle, Supreme Court released the film.
Any others are facing same kind of problem? We heard about your two, three films, but any other directors are facing same problem?
Yes. So now all the time, because we have been making films that goes against the let's say the project of the government. Most of the successful project of the government has been nationalistic jingo, and polarization. As I said, these things I said earlier on ethnic and religious lines. So make apart from making films and through films, And by making films and me sometimes even outside my profession, we have been vocal. So we have been always, the enemies of the state. Myself and some other filmmakers like Ashoka Handagama and Vimukti Jayasundara. So but I take it as, I'm not going to, let's say, harp on that. I have studied, how the filmmakers, let's say, in during the McCarthyism in USA, or yeah, even filmmakers, in Iran, how have they have been facing these issues. So it's sometimes, I don't welcome censorship at all. I'll be fighting against censorship all the time in future also. But same time, I cannot remember who said, but they used the word uh, it's more many things. So many things we are compelled to keep lot of subtleties underwater. Mm? Like it's like a tip. The word that he uses is iceberg. So that comes from my survival instinct. When you keep a lot of things under the iceberg, it's like iceberg. You see the only the tip of the iceberg, but a lot of things, the subtleties, nuances, uh, when you keep under the, I hoping that the audience will, uh, I mean, they will feel these things. They will understand. So now, when I was listening to you all of you were talking about those iceberg effect. The which is not, no one. Mainly didn't discuss the film based on the dialogue. You all may discuss the film based on the emotions, the situations, and the way the camera and all that has worked. So that the censorship in our country has compelled me to be, I think, become more imaginative. So that is the one aspect of censorship. It makes you more sharper. It makes you, you have to be good to bring the subtleties, and the film automatically becomes subtle.
Thanks, Prasanna. Even I remember Kislovsky saying it, that since Polish censorship was so harsh, so that he learned how to write a very short script. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Anyone else? Do you like to ask anything? Bhagilakshmi ma'am, Aditi ma'am, anyone?
Hi, may I add something?
Yes, please go ahead.
So, like right now, Prasanna sir mentioned how, like, tourism economies have sort of become the sort of like bogus tourism where like there on the surface is the idea of exploring mythological sites, but it's also like, sort of capitalistic cultural industry, which like is makes it a bit of a hollow experience. And in the film also, in Paradise as well, we see it that while Amrita has a sort of um, almost Gramscian way of seeing the place, where she says that that rock is so magnificent that it deserves a legend, like so like but at the same time she is aware that there are people who are making money out of making capitalistic sort of exploitation, whether or not it is exploitation in Amrita's words, but like the audience can sort of see a sort of capitalistic extraction of the sites and and the mythologies that surround the place. And it doesn't matter whether or not they believe in it. What matters is they assume that the person coming there either believes in it or has enough money to give, whether or not they believe in it. They are entertained by their supposed beliefs. So this sort of juxtaposing coexistence of Gramscian values in a tourist who's also involved in a very capitalistic transaction. It becomes a very sort of, it adds to the whole um, idea of coming to a foreign land and not knowing the language, not but having some sort of similarities when it comes to nature or even cultural overlaps and social political overlaps and things like that. So it just adds to the complexities to it.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for saying. Um, Thank you so much, Shilpa ma'am, for discussing the film so elaboratingly. And also thank you so much, Prasanna sir, for joining us today and sharing your insights and giving your time. Thank you
Yeah,
everyone else for joining. Sorry.
yeah. Sorry. Thank you, Muskan. I enjoyed the whole discussion, and I remember Ronaldo used to say that he used the word, I think, adda, because he used to have a lot of discussion, and his friends in Bengal and Calcutta and call it adda, having a this, I mean, talking about films and all. So I'm very happy, even in this digital age. Earlier it was film society. Now that collectively you all are, I mean, meeting and watching films, having discussions and giving great insights and involving a filmmaker also. So I was privileged to be with you today, and as I have promised earlier, I'll be sharing some of my films. I mean, Vimeo links with you all. It's I mean, you can watch it anytime. It's free. And thank you for adding me for the discussion. Good night to all.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. And thanks, Shilpa. Thanks, Muskan. Thanks, everyone, for joining the discussion. Hope to see you next Saturday, same time at 9 p.m. with one more interesting film and one more round of discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you so
Good
much.
night. Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Night. Night.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
Thanks, Shilpa.
Thank you so much, Nikhila ma'am. Thank you so much, Prasanna sir. So lovely to have had you here.
Thank you, Shilpa.